Good evening, everybody. As the president and on behalf of the Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation, I welcome the audience and the candidates to tonight's forum. For the next 90 minutes, our goal will be to learn more about the individuals seated at the dais. These candidates are seeking the votes that will enable them to represent our neighborhoods in the Illinois House of Representatives. Just to give you a brief rundown on how the evening is going to go, we'll start off with the candidates introducing themselves and their positions. This will be followed by 2 questions that the Confederation provided to the candidates prior to this evening, and which are printed on the program agenda, which hopefully you picked up in the table in the lobby. Following these questions, we will turn to questions from the audience. Index cards and pens have been made available to audience members so that you can write down your questions, which will be passed on to the screeners and then given to me to ask the candidates. The screeners sitting at this table here will review the submitted questions to ensure they fit the guidelines that are included in the forum agenda. At around 8:20, we will ask the candidates to wrap things up with their closing comments. All right, let's begin. I will introduce the candidates in the order that was determined by the lots we drew earlier, asking each of you to introduce yourself and describe why you are running, what your position is, and the kicker is you've got 90 seconds to do it. So good luck with that. Speaking of timing, Dr. Bob Buckman is sitting over at the timers table, and he'll be keeping time throughout the forum. He will stop you if you run over the allotted time. He is not bashful about doing that at all. So let's start with Krishna Bansal. And Krishna, your opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, Naperville homeowners. My name is Krishna Bansal, running for District 84. Live in Naperville, have business headquartered in Aurora. I've been married for 20 years and have 2 daughters attending middle schools. I've been very actively involved, volunteering with the cities, education, and nonprofit organizations in the area. I believe I'm the product of 3 things. Values, which I received from my family, especially to live within the means. Second, education. My master's in business administration and finance made me capable of who I am. And third, the most important one, opportunities. Several years back, with only a few $100s in my pocket, I came to the United States with a desire to live the American dream. I worked hard and was able to build a successful business and was able to provide hundreds of jobs right here in Illinois. Today, these opportunities are disappearing. Businesses, people, all are leaving a beautiful state. We are at the bottom of job creation. Education is in a tough state. We are exporting our children for college and jobs out of state. I would like my children and all children to have the same opportunities that we had. We have to improve education, build a better business climate, and eliminate wastage for the economy and jobs to grow without increasing any more taxes. With my experience in business, community service, and parent, I'm looking to get elected and help bring back our state. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Ron Sandak.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. My name's Ron Sandak. I live in Downers Grove. I am the father of 2, the husband of 1, the former mayor of the great village of Downers Grove, a friend to the city of Naperville, and delighted to be here this evening for some friendly conversation about what's going on in Springfield and who best serves our needs. I went to Springfield to be different and to do differently, and I think I've set a tone and a tenor that demonstrates that. I was the first member of the legislature not to take a pension. I didn't do that out of any other purpose other than thinking new leadership was needed, demonstrating that the pension systems that were going on, and still, frankly, a challenge with Springfield, needs to be addressed differently. Besides, part-time legislators, public servants, really don't deserve a full-time benefit that goes with a full-time job. So I've been different. I'm the guy that put up term limits. I'm the guy that introduced fair maps. I put up a bill called the Office of the Repealer, seeking to repeal obsolete or old redundant laws. I think we need structural change so that we finally have budgets that make sense and that we can return the state to a state that it once was, which was prosperous, a place we were proud of, a place where we raised our children, worked, and were proud to be Illinoisans. We can do that again. We just need a whole new set of people, a new set of attitudes, and a new perspective. I think I demonstrate that not by my words, but by my deeds. I look forward to questions and collegial conversation tonight. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Our next speaker is Liz Chaplin.
Thank you. As my 3 children played in their wading pool, I wondered if our water had been tainted by a spill of hazardous chemicals at the Lockformer Company. When a test of our water found it was indeed contaminated, I got involved and I won the battle for safe drinking water. My name is Liz Chaplin, and I'm running for state representative to serve the 81st District. After serving 8 years on the DuPage Water Commission, I was elected to the DuPage County Board in 2012 and have refused to accept the taxpayer-funded health and pension benefits. Working with my constituents always energizes me. I enjoy talking with people I represent, whether it's to engage them on the issues, to solve problems they're facing, whether it's finding a place to live after a flood or fighting for greater railway safety, making sure that our veterans receive the honor, respect, and benefits they deserve. My philosophy is that government needs to be frugal and fiscally responsible while providing the needed services, which include education, public safety, quality infrastructure, and human services. I have a track record of doing exactly this during my years of service on the Water Commission and the County Board. I have learned that when tax dollars are spent lining the pockets of those connected with the insider elite, government cannot afford to do what is needed to be done. As state representative, I will stay focused on the needs of our community. It won't matter whether someone is a Democrat or Republican. My job will be to be a public servant to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Grant Worley.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you to the Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation, and thank you to my fellow candidates. I mean, it takes a lot to throw your hat in the ring and step up and serve the public in this manner, and thanks for doing that. I am born and raised in the 41st District. I am a product of School District 203. I met my wife, Sharon, a long time ago, serving at the Naperville Jaycees, and we've been married for over 22 years now. We call Naperville home, and it is where we have chosen to raise our 2 sons here. I am running for Illinois State House because the biggest threat to the 41st District is coming out of Springfield. Their only solutions seem to be raising taxes, and more taxes. But I do see brighter days ahead, and I'll tell you why. Because I've been honored to serve on the Naperville City Council since 2005, and during that time, working collaboratively, we have been able to address some key concerns here in town. We balance our budget year in, year out. We implemented service-based budgeting, so it's basically zero-based budgeting, and so instead of just asking for 3% one year over year, we justify the programs and make sure that we can fund them. We've added dollars to our public safety pensions without increasing that hit on the property tax roll, so we're very sound with your dollars. We've lowered taxes 4 years in a row. Keep in mind the Great Recession was going on, and while that was going on, we did a couple of things. We made every decision as a group with a taxpayer in mind, and we championed small business growth and jobs. Let me give you some examples. SKF headquarters is about to announce their groundbreaking. So I look forward to the questions and comments this evening. Thank you, Naperville Area Homeowners, for having us here.
Thank you, Grant. Ed Augustin.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Naperville Area Homeowners, for this. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Naperville Area Homeowners, for this opportunity to speak and meet with all of you. I'm Ed Augustin, and I'm running to be the next state representative for District 41. It's been over 31 years since this area has had a Democrat represent us, which was when we still had the cumulative voting system, which went away in 1983, I believe. I want to represent all of the voters of this district, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, by being their voice and your voice in Springfield. I've been a precinct committeeman for Naperville Township and was honored to be recognized as the Precinct Committeeman of the Year 2012. As a Democrat, I will support raising the minimum wage to become a living wage. I will hold the line on property taxes by broadening out the tax base. I will fight for jobs and eliminate loopholes that allow corporations to take our money use our infrastructure, and then leave the country or state to avoid paying their share of taxes. I want to be fiscally responsible with our tax dollars, insist on mandatory prison terms for child sexual predators, and end the lavish perk of free taxpayer-funded health insurance for retired legislators. I'm a retired architect and a Navy veteran, and as I served my country, I'd like to serve my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And Stephanie Kifowit.
Good evening. My apologies for being a bit tardy. I had a meeting that went a little late. But thank you, Naperville Area Homeowner Confederation, for having me today. It is both an honor and a thrill to be here. I was elected state representative just 2 years ago, and so definitely new to the position. Myself, I was born and raised in Illinois. I actually was raised in Wheaton, Illinois, so I've always been DuPage County growing up. I'm a veteran. I served 4 years in the United States Marine Corps. I have my master's in public administration right down the road at Northern Illinois University. I also was, similar to Grant, I also was very honored to be elected 3rd Ward Alderman for the City of Aurora. And similar to Naperville, the City of Aurora always balanced our budgets and definitely made sure that we were fiscally sound and had a very high bond rating, which is one of my initiatives in Springfield to get our state back on track fiscally. The bottom line is that we have to hold the line on taxes. My district has one of the highest property taxes in the district, and that's the number one concern and the number one thing that we've been working on the last 2 years. In addition to that, I'm there to help our veterans. Part of the Veteran Suicide Task Force, we lose one veteran every day. And I'm one of only 6 veterans in the whole House. And definitely, we need to be there for those that serve so proudly and that was there for our country. So thank you very much, and a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next are the 2 questions that the Confederation submitted to the candidates prior to this evening's forum. We're going to start with Stephanie and work our way from my right to the left, ending with Krishna on this question. Following these questions, well, there'll be 2 questions. The second question that you have in hand already, I'm going to start in the middle and be creative in where we go next, but just so everybody's aware of where we're going to go. Anyway, following those 2 questions, we're going to go to audience questions, and I'd like to remind the audience that volunteers are available with note cards and pens if you would like to write down a question, and if you have it ready, raise your hand and they'll pick it up and take it to the screeners. So let's take a look at our questions. Candidates, you will have 1.5 minutes to answer each of these. The first NAHC question is whether through legislatively mandated programs that are passed into law without an accompanying revenue stream from the state, that is unfunded mandates, or legislative initiatives such as the proposed Senate Bill 16, which will reallocate state funds from local districts and put them into less privileged districts, and increasingly greater responsibility for supporting public primary and secondary education is falling on our area homeowners through their property tax payments. Do you believe it is fair and equitable for the state to shift the burden of funding schools throughout the entire state onto suburban homeowners in Naperville and similar, more affluent communities in order to achieve the level of a general equivalency across the state for all districts? And again, we'll start with Stephanie.
Well, the simple answer is no. I don't think that's fair, and nor do I think it's in the best interest of my district. The bottom line is my district has Kendall County, DuPage County, Will County, and a bit of King County, and those are the counties with some of the highest property taxes there are already. I am on record as being against the cost shift because shifting those costs to the school districts would just result in more higher property taxes. In addition, I am currently against Senate Bill 16 in its form. I think there's a lot of work to do, and I think the discussion has to be centered on the imbalance between the money that the Chicago Public Schools get from the state and all our other school districts. Clear example is that Chicago has a lot of TIF districts, tax increment financing districts, that take a lot of money from the schools, and that needs to be part of the discussion at releasing some of that money in Chicago to fund their schools properly, just like we fund our schools today. They have suppressed property taxes there because the state pays more to the Chicago Public Schools, and we need to start getting the discussion around our schools lowering our property taxes and supporting them fairly. So with that regards, I think that this premise is not good for my district, and I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ed.
I'm not used to doing this, of course. The state has a responsibility to provide education for all the children in Illinois. Senate Bill 16 is a plan to provide needed funds to underfinanced districts by redistributing funds from districts that generate income from wealthier areas of the state. I've recently met with the Illinois Federation of Teachers, and their response to the revenue sharing between school districts was 50-50. Half were in favor, half were opposed to the entire program. One's position on this issue depends on what side of the fence you're on. The goal for all of us should be that everyone, all students in Illinois, be given the opportunity to receive good, well-rounded education. To deny this for our students is not who we are. This may be the right thing to do, but rather than dilute the current funding available, alternate sources of funding should be explored. Paul Volcker, former head of the Federal Reserve, stated that Illinois has too narrow a tax base. Instead of having an inequity problem in our school districts, we have a funding problem where we are attempting to redistribute funding dollars that are already inadequate. Additional funds can be raised through the progressive tax. Illinois should, like 31 other states and the federal government, implement a progressive tax instead of the flat tax currently in use. This would reduce the tax on the middle-class working families and increase it for those most able to absorb it. The 3% millionaires tax could also increase funds for educational use without harming the working class taxpayers of this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Grant.
Thank you, Bob. There is no doubt we need to look at how we fund education in the state of Illinois. In the time, we probably should have, we must have that conversation now. But SB 16 would be disastrous for the school districts inside the 41st district. When fully implemented, it would take over $30 million on an annual basis out of school districts 200, 203, and 204. Put on top of that the pension cost shift, which is approximately another $30 million. Representative Kifowit is absolutely correct. In Chicago, there are over 150 TIF districts. Why is that not being talked about? In this bill, there's also talk of shifting the Chicago teachers' pension system to the state. Well, the same conversation is going on taking the TRS system and shifting it to the locals. It didn't work the first time, and now they want to do it again. Governor Quinn, in his FY14 budget address and in his FY14 budget book, stated that Illinois has some of the highest property taxes in the nation, 20% higher than the national average. He is absolutely correct. Those that are in favor of this bill, I have one question. Where do you think that money is going to come from? It is going to come from the residents and the taxpayers and the business owners inside the 41st district. We need to have this conversation on how we fund education, but this bill is not how to do it.
Thank you, Grant. Liz Chaplin.
Thank you. If there's to be property tax relief for the homeowners of the 81st district, the amount spent by the state of Illinois in education will need to be increased. Article 10 of the Illinois Constitution assigns responsibility of the state of Illinois to provide high-quality public education throughout the state. Unfortunately, the current distribution of education funding does not provide for the adequate, equitable, transparent, and accountable distribution of state aid to every school district in the state. As presented, Senate Bill 16 is totally and entirely unacceptable. Every school district within the 81st district would suffer a devastating reduction in state assistance if Senate Bill 16 were enacted into law. On the other hand, the status quo is unacceptable, both as a matter of what is right and wrong and as a practical political matter. If affluent communities such as Naperville circle the wagons and adopt a policy of just say no to calls for greater funding, equity across the state, our 81st district risks being denied a seat at the negotiating table, and our 81st district risks being voted out in Springfield. If there's to be property tax relief for the homeowners of the 81st district, and if we are to meet the challenge of Senate Bill 16, the amount spent by the state of Illinois on education will need to be increased. absolute, oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Ron Sandak.
To paraphrase Abe Lincoln, you cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. That's what Senate Bill 16 seeks to do. It seeks to prop up schools that are in dire straits, to be sure, but it does it in an inequitable and frankly improper way. Let's not suspend our disbelief. We live in Illinois. What's going on right now is horse trading. SB 16 got through the Senate on nearly the last day of the last session, quietly and under the radar. The sponsor in the House said she was not going to call the bill, and she reiterated that last week at a forum where District 200, 203, and 204 hosted. That was good, except she also said she wouldn't mind if someone else took the bill. Mike Madigan and the Democrats in control of Springfield are talking right now horse trading for a cost shift with the city of Chicago, because there must be something in that bill for Chicago for city Democrats to vote on it. I'm leading the fight against it because it's a bad bill. The sentiments of the authors are good and pure. School equity, helping those school districts that hurt the most, should be a desired end, but not taking from the schools in Naperville, Downers Grove, the 81st District, and all of the suburbs. It's $140 million loss to DuPage County. It's a non-starter. I'm hoping to get more people on my resolution, House Resolution 1276, which puts the fight to Senate Bill 16, and it says who's on it and who's against it, because there is no middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Krishna Bansal.
I've always been taught to live within the means. As a person, as a person running a family and as a person running a business, I cannot imagine to spend more than what I have. And that's what applies to the state and all the governments too. Who gives them the authority to spend more than what they have? And that really is the question around the unfunded liabilities we are talking about. Absolutely, it should not be allowed. Regarding SB 16, I completely oppose any legislative initiatives to redistribute funding backed by political agendas, as our Representative Sandak talked about. It is whenever government gets into the business of picking the winners and losers, we all lose. We absolutely cannot afford to move out any dollars from our school districts, as we all agree on one thing, that property taxes we pay are at the highest level. Now, regarding where will this money come from? Will we go back and increase our property taxes? Absolutely not. If we do that, it'll be devastating for the entire district, entire area, in fact, entire state, if we do that. Neither, on the other hand, we can cut any educational programs. There are, yes, we have to look at, as we cutting any of the hidden agendas out from this, we need to look at coming up with a proper solution. But we cannot do just this redistribution based on any of these political hidden agendas and just punish whoever is the most successful school, the more successful school districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. For our second prepared question, we'll start with Grant and move to my right. So it'll be Grant, Ed, Stephanie, and then we'll swing back to this side and go Krishna, Ron, Liz. So that's the order for the next question. Many commentators and constituencies feel that the fundamental structure of our state government, and in particular the legislature, has led to inefficiencies and ineffectiveness in government and a voter's sense of lack of or perhaps insufficient representation. Proposed solutions initiated by the voters include referendums mandating term limits for elected offices and a new nonpartisan process for drawing district boundaries. While neither of these initiatives will be on the November ballot, do you perceive problems within the structure of our representative government? And if so, and if elected, how would you address these? Mr. Worley.
Thank you. There are structural problems in our government, but they were put there on design by those in power. The Democrats have held the map. They refuse to put term limits on the ballot. It's interesting when I'm talking with people about why would I want to run for state house and leave a wonderful city like Naperville and go down to Springfield, it's because those problems need to be addressed. We need government returned into the hands of the people, and right now it is set up in Springfield so that the people in office get to choose who votes for them. We need to change that. Term limits. Let me put the speaker's term in perspective. When he was first elected to office, I was 2. Speaker Madigan has been there since 1971. He's been there too long. Here in Naperville, we passed term limits. When we were going to go to wards, we didn't have any elected official have any input into that process. It was done completely in a nonpartisan manner. So I support term limits, and we absolutely need a fair map amendment, and they should be on the ballot, and it's nothing but a get-out-the-vote effort by the political leaders controlling Springfield now to get what they have on the ballot now and leave these vital items off.
Thank you, Grant. Ed Augustin.
Thank you. If a totally impartial process of redrawing the district boundaries could be implemented, I would totally support such an operation. To properly represent all of the voters in the state, regardless of their location, redistricting without regard to current political affiliations will be fair to all political parties. In an effort to reduce the role that legislative politics might play, 7 states have already determined congressional redistricting by an independent or bipartisan redistricting commission. That's Arizona, California, Hawaii, Iowa, Montana, New Jersey, and Washington. Term limits. That issue's come up several times, and Speaker Madigan's been mentioned in regard to this, but he's not in this room. He's not running in this district. I am. I firmly believe that elections are held to allow the voters to decide if they prefer to retain their current leadership or desire a change. Limiting some political offices to term limits deprives the voters affected their right to vote for the candidate of their choice. It should be up to the voters of a district, county, or state to decide if their political leader should remain in office or be replaced by a new candidate. A person should be able to stay elected as long as the people want him. If you want term limits, start voting for different people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Stephanie Kifowit.
Thank you. And just to piggyback on what Grant said, that was actually the year I was born, which still leaves me a little speechless, to be quite honest. I think that I'm in favor of the fair map. In fact, one of my legislation that we passed, it doesn't quite affect Naperville, but it affects Aurora, a portion of my district, is the Fox Valley Park District bill that we passed that allowed now the Park District to go from an appointed board to an elected board. And I worked very closely with Representative Fortner in drawing the boundaries and making sure that they were fair and equitable and that everybody got a right to a fair vote. So I do believe, and to be quite honest, I know that the court ruled on the fair map amendment, but they did not rule it out. So there was some positives there that it could be back. I think the fair map amendment does have some standing, and it does allow for people to get their right to vote their individuals. I will piggyback on just the apathy of voters, and to be quite honest, if you look at the House of Representatives as a whole, there is a lot of turnover. When I was elected just 2 years ago, I was elected with a freshman class of over 24 individuals. And now this election cycle, there are 17, I believe 16 to 17 seats that are open that are now free. So almost a third of the House of Representatives now are going to be within the 2-year mark. And so I do think that elections do provide good turnover for the rank and file. But the point taken, and I think the point of term limits need to really be narrowed down to leadership and those that have been maybe in office since I've been alive.
Thank you, Stephanie. Krishna.
Well, our government in Illinois is broken under the single-party rule from last 10 years. We definitely need to bring in 3 measures. The first of all, I'll say term limits definitely needs to be done. Our founding fathers, if George Washington wanted to stay as a president of our country, he could have stayed forever the president, but he set an example. He did set an example which we should follow, and the term limit should be there. And if the state does not enact it, we should have I will personally impose a self-imposed term limit on myself of 8 years. Legislators should lead by examples and show public services privilege, unlike my opponent who voted for SB 274, effectively raising her pay by $3,100. I'll be donating my legislative salary to charities that will serve 84th district. I'll also decline healthcare plan as well as the pension. And of course, the fair map, that needs to happen. It cannot be dealt by, we cannot have the maps drawn by either party legislators. There has to be a computer model that should be used, a fair model to draw the maps, just to be fair for everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Standek.
Thank you. Mark Twain once said, "No person's life, liberty, or property is safe when the legislature is in session." That is so true in Illinois. Unfortunately, it is bereft. It is full of inefficiencies and ineffectiveness, and it is structural. As I said in my opening remark, I have a term limit bill that the Democrats in charge, Speaker Madigan, won't let out of committee. I have a fair map bill that borrows from Iowa, which is a computer-generated system to do maps. It's easily done. Take politicians out of it. Right now, politicians in power pick their constituents rather than voters picking their representatives. That needs to change. With respect to term limits, look, we know what Illinois looks like without term limits. It can't get worse. We ought to give it a try. It's worked in Downers Grove. It works well in Naperville. It works well in well-run local governments and in well-run states. It's time for a structural change, an absolutely new way of doing things, because how we're doing things now, one-party rule in particular, is ineffective, inefficient, and it leads to that Twain saying that none of us are safe until and unless there's change. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. And Liz Chaplin.
Thank you. The basic problem with Springfield is that it's being run by a connected group of political insiders. Some of these players wear Republican uniforms and others wear Democratic uniforms, but underneath it all, both teams are on the same side, kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. In Springfield, Republicans and Democrats fight in public while the deals that matter most are made behind closed doors, and the insider elite protect each other regardless of political party. I'm a very different kind of public servant. I have never been a go-along to get along kind of person, not during my 8 years on the Water Commission and not while serving on the DuPage County Board. If you don't believe me, ask Dan Cronin. He'll tell you I can be a real pain in the you-know-what. But that's because I stand up for what I believe in and for what I believe is true. While serving on the Water Commission, I began to notice things weren't adding up. Everyone was telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, at least until everyone had to agree that I was right. My tenacity in standing against the powers that be enhanced the transparency and fiscal integrity of the DuPage Water Commission. How do we fix Springfield? By stop electing those who are more interested in joining the insider elite than serving their constituents. As far as structure goes, I think we should consider returning to multi-member districts that would weaken the two-party system. Of course, I support objective, independent map making. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. We're now going to move on to the section of the forum where the questions came from the audience. Two major changes here. One, the candidates have not seen these questions in advance. The second question is you will have a maximum of 45 seconds to answer the question. Having said that, fair warning, just so you can get your breath. Liz, you get the first question. We'll go Liz, Ron, Krishna, Stephanie, and back toward the center as I keep rolling around. And I apologize for doing you back to back, Liz.
That's okay.
I have a pile of questions here on the dais already. I will try to get through these as quickly as we possibly can. There is still time, though. If you have questions, audience members, please raise your hand, and a screener will pick them up. Our first question for Liz Chaplin. If you agree that Illinois needs to attract more businesses to locate their offices and operations in this state, what will you do to promote that effort?
Well, I think having a well-educated and trained workforce is important to bring and attract new businesses. I also believe that having good infrastructure, good schools, good parks, good hospitals, good public transportation, that all leads to businesses wanting to locate to a community. So providing the amenities that are important to people is what draws business. So as long as we keep those amenities, I believe that will help bring business to the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Liz. If anyone would like me to repeat the question before it's their turn to answer, please ask, but otherwise I'll just go ahead. Ron Sandak.
Government doesn't create jobs, but government can get in the way of job creation, which is exactly what's happening right now. Our tax structure, our regulation environment are all prohibitive of growth. Here's what's going on. We've got location, we've got infrastructure, we have the education system, we have the human talent. What we don't have is a business environment that promotes, accepts, and is good for business. So what we have is every 10 minutes, someone leaves the state of Illinois, never to return. Jobs and people are leaving. The way of tax and spend and borrow is utterly failing. We need to create an environment where business can grow, particularly small business. That isn't handouts. That's not corporate welfare. Get out of that business. I voted against all those measures. But what matters is a fair, level playing field, and we need that now. And that means, frankly, less taxes, less regulation, and a better place for people to grow their business.
Krishna.
Well, I can talk about for this with my first-hand experience running a business, building and running a business. First of all, whenever government start thinking that government thinks that they are the ones they build businesses or create jobs, that's absolutely wrong. Government should be just a facilitator for something that we cannot do. They just provide extra services. We need to have less government, less regulation, a better environment to attract businesses. The reason businesses are tired, the businesses are leaving, are because of all the over-regulations, the taxes. They cannot deal with it. We need to simplify our regulations. We need to fix, we need to bring in tort reform. We need to look at different reforms. Those are certain things which are really discouraging businesses to leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. In these past 2 years, I've been a member of the Economic Development Committee for the state and the Small Business Workforce Committee. The biggest thing, and as an alderman with the city of Aurora, we worked and we brought in businesses, we brought in Peerless, we brought in O'Cedar, and the number one reason why these businesses came to Aurora was because of the fiscal stability of the city and the balanced budget. And so the number one thing we need to do is get the state back on fiscal stability. We got to work to get a trained workforce, working with organizations like the Valley Industrial Association. I voted for the EDGE tax credit that goes to small and mid-sized businesses, and that's why I voted against the income tax extension, because it hurts small businesses, and we need to lower our taxes, lower our fees. I'm a sponsor to lowering our LLC fees to help spur businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ed?
Well, in order to improve the business situation here, we need to do quite a few things. The infrastructure, especially Route 59, is being improved as we speak. It's an annoyance for me because I live in that area, but it will help Naperville tremendously once it's all completed. We also need to provide technical trained students. COD has quite a few technical training programs that can be utilized so that the employers can find well-qualified employees. One thing that will help to create consumers is to raise the minimum wage so that when you have consumers spending money, you have businesses needing to supply that.
Thank you, Ed. Grant.
Thank you. The city of Naperville has been very successful in attracting new business to Naperville, quite honestly, in spite of the state of Illinois. We've attracted O'Reilly Auto, the distribution facility, Handy Foil, a manufacturing plant, Delta Dental, Illinois, their corporate headquarters is now in Illinois. But to some of the businesses that we lost, we always ask, well, why did we lose? And they quite honestly point to Springfield and the state. They see unfair workman's comp without causation. We desperately need tort reform. Our financial plan, if we can do one thing to attract more business to Illinois, is come up with a solid financial plan. Even if it's bad news, businesses are okay with that for all the reasons that Representative Sandak said. We have the people, we have the infrastructure, we have the location, but we need to get our state's finances on solid ground, and that in itself is the biggest thing we can do to attract more jobs and businesses to Illinois.
Thank you, Grant. For our next question, we'll start with Ed, go to Stephanie, and come back to Krishna and work our way back down the dais. So, Ed, what will you do specifically to ease or eliminate the current public pension crisis that prevails in Illinois?
The current pension crisis, there are three things that can be done. Support the progressive income tax so that more funds are available to pay these pensions. Expand some sales taxes to, again, increase funding for the pension situation, and pay off the current pension debt and not pay it off, but refinance it so that it isn't as cumbersome as it currently is for our taxpayers.
Thank you, Ed. Stephanie.
Pensions has been the foremost discussion in my brief 2 years on the state representative. I voted for Senate Bill 1, which is the Pension Reform Act. It adjusted because, to be quite honest, our pensions are paying out more than they're bringing in. And a lot of the reforms are needed to save money in the long-term area, and definitely try to put the state back on strong financial footing, which I think is our ultimate goal. What is the case right now is Senate Bill 1 is in the courts, being reviewed by the Supreme Court, and we will see what their recommendations are going forward as terms to whether it falls under the Pension Protection Clause or not. But it has to be, well, any solution has to be fair and equitable to not only the retirees, the current workers, but also to the taxpayers and for everybody in the state of Illinois.
Thank you. Krishna.
Well, pension, that's the largest problem we have in our state. This needs to be fixed. We cannot wait anymore for this. We all agree on to that. How it can be done? I mean, of course, the pension that has been committed, we have to honor that. But going forward, at some point of time, we have to cut it, and we have to move it to a 401k style pension plan. We need to. We cannot have state continue to manage the pensions. We have seen state has been very inefficient managing the money, and if we continue have them manage the money, it's not going to work very well. We need to give this away. We need to have this managed in a 401k style plan where people can manage their own money and be more responsible. This has to be implemented as soon as possible. We know it's in Supreme Court, it is being weighed, but this in the next session it should be dealt in at the highest priority.
Thank you. Ron.
There's a couple things we can do, and there's some things we have done. First, politicians shouldn't take a pension. They should demonstrate that they're public servants and not career politicians by not taking a pension. Two, Stephanie's correct, we passed SB 1. I was criticized from the right because it was not strong enough. I was criticized from the left because it was too onerous. Perhaps, just like Goldilocks, it was just right. It's in the court. We'll find out if it stays. If it does, market improvement will be made to those pension plans, but that's not the end game because they're still unsustainable financially. Anyone that's done the math knows that. We need to have a new system, a defined contribution system for new workers going forward so they can take care of their own financial security and not hurt taxpayers. The system right now is unfair to taxpayers.
Liz Chaplin.
Thank you. Well, until we have a ruling and the reasoning behind the ruling from the Illinois Supreme Court, it's going to be really difficult to figure out what we need to do, how we're going to solve the pension crisis. But one thing that I've learned over the past 10 years serving in local government is the importance of using funds as they're intended to. The DuPage Water Commission, they used the sales tax to fund the water rate, which led to the depletion of the reserves. The state pensions, instead of raising taxes, they raided the pension system. So a good start would be to continue fully funding the pensions like we have the past 2 years, and wait until the Supreme Court rules on the legislation. Thank you.
Liz. Grant.
Thank you. First off, I fought hard here at the City of Naperville to get rid of public pensions for elected officials. I will not take one if elected in Springfield. This also gets back to having a sound financial plan. The state, I review the budget book quite often. It kind of drives my wife nuts. And the plan is kind of loosely there, but they hide a lot. To the progressive income tax, revenues to the state have never been higher. Revenues to the state of Illinois have never, ever been higher than they are today. But to that point, Governor Quinn's new FY15 budget has $1.2 billion of new spending. We're not solving the pension crisis by continuing our spending. We need to do a holistic look at what our priorities are, a zero-based budgeting, a services-based budgeting, and prioritize what we need to do. Revenues have never been higher. We can find a solution to the pension crisis. It's just not through higher taxes.
Thank you, Grant. Our next question, we will start with Ron, go to Liz, work our way around, and with Krishna. So Ron, what will you do specifically? Well, it'd be nice if I read the new question. Sorry about that.
Do it again.
What will you do to stop, or similar start to the question at least, to stop unfunded mandates for various governmental entities?
Yeah, you know, the thing that we hear from local units of government so often is you tax me, you take away funds that are supposed to go to local units of government, and then you add an unfunded mandate. And we do this particularly with schools. There were 24 unfunded mandates that were lopped onto schools last year, all without money, all that required new rules, new regulations, new things to do that took away from time in the classroom. The Republicans, I hate to be partisan, have stood up and yelled, enough. Every time there's a new mandate, we take away from the schools. And then you hear some people say, and I think there's two up here that want to add a progressive income tax or raise income taxes again. We're not even spending the money we have now properly. Grant's absolutely right. The state's never had more revenue than now, and yet we spend more than we have, and we lop new unfunded mandates on top of all our local municipalities.
Thank you, Ron.
It's got to end.
Liz.
Thank you. Well, I think we absolutely need to take a look at our unfunded mandates. And, you know, we hear a lot about the cost of the unfunded mandates, but we don't know the exact numbers. So what I would suggest be to our schools and our local governments, give us a list of the cost of those unfunded mandates. We can go through those unfunded mandates and see, repeal those that aren't necessary and that don't make any sense, and keep the ones that we feel are good for our government in place. And that's how I would deal with the unfunded mandates. Thank you.
Grant.
Unfunded mandates, another example of Springfield leadership kicking the can elsewhere. We see unfunded mandates here in the city of Naperville. We especially see them at in the school boards. So Governor Quinn, all the way down to my esteemed opponent, want property tax relief. Guess where those unfunded mandates hit? Squarely on the property taxes. They continue to spend money that they don't have, and they push the problems elsewhere. This is where it comes back to where we need a solid financial plan and a solid vision for the problems we face and how to solve them. Unfunded mandates are everything. They're in collective bargaining, they're in public pensions, they're in health care. They come from all directions because they just simply want to provide nice, wonderful things for people, but can't come up with a way to pay for them.
Ed?
Well, I'm offended that I keep getting misquoted. I am not in favor of raising property taxes. But getting back to the unfunded mandates, just like in zero-based budgeting, you start with nothing and you put in things that you can't afford, and if it's not fundable, it doesn't get passed. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. And just to add, when I was elected and sworn in, I did not take a taxpayer-funded pension as either. But the unfunded mandates, I do agree, and we have talked about this in committee, is reviewing all the unfunded mandates. And I have talked to the sponsor of Senate Bill 16, and that has to be part of the discussion too, is the unfunded mandates that come down and the true cost of those as well. But I have to agree, we do, again, need to get back to solid financial footing and some sort of direction for the state of Illinois to be able to meet the needs of the community and the children that we are educating and the services that are provided to those in our municipalities.
Thank you. Krishna?
It's the same thing again. Like in a family or a business, we start with a solid plan. Same thing applies to the state or any government. I mean, yes, we get into the situation of unfunded mandates, but we have to find what we can fund, what we have available. We cannot just hope and run around every time to go and increase taxes. That's not the solution. We have to look at, first of all, what our spending is, what is important, prioritize them, and then deal with them in a right way, as we do it in a business, as we do it in our life, as we do it in a well-run city or any organization. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next question. We'll start with Krishna, go to Stephanie, and work back to Ron. Krishna, what is your position on whether the state of Illinois should be taxing retirement and Social Security income? As background, currently the state of Illinois does not tax Social Security income or retirement income for senior citizens.
Well, I have to look at this issue a little more in detail. My understanding is the Social Security income for the state employees, if you're talking about.
No, this is for the public.
For the public.
For the public.
Well, I have to do more research to weigh on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Again, we can't keep taxing individuals, and this is a tax that I'm not in favor of. I have talked to many seniors, many individuals struggling just to stay in their homes because they can't afford to pay the property taxes, and they can't afford basic essentials to live and prescriptions, and then for the state to come in and start taxing their retirement income, I think is not the right way to go about it. I do think that we need to have a larger discussion on the whole financial picture of the state, but just like I don't think we can cut our way out of it, I don't think we can tax our way out of it either. We need direction and we need a sound financial plan, and I'm against taxing retirement income.
Ed?
This is a rather personal question for me because I am retired. I am living on Social Security, and I would obviously be opposed to taxing the little bit of income that I do get. And I'm sure all of the other retired residents of Naperville would agree with me. If we need additional revenue, we're not going to get it from our senior citizens. Thank you.
Grant?
Thank you. I, too, am opposed to taxing retirement income and Social Security, but this also speaks to the millionaire's tax. So people that are high earners and people that are retired, we want them to stay in Illinois because they help fund a lot of the other services just by paying property taxes. And if we start implementing these regressive taxes on retirement, Social Security, and a millionaire's tax, they're just going to leave. And then the problem gets exponentially worse. So I am opposed to not only taxing retirement and Social Security, but the 3% millionaire's tax.
Liz?
Yes, thank you. I also would be opposed to taxing retirements and Social Security. Thank you.
And Ron?
There's no reason to even consider that possibility. It would just drive people out of the state faster. Senior citizens live on fixed incomes. They're not likely to be candidates for taking more money from them. Rather, we ought to be looking at a way to improve the economy, to create more taxpayers. That's by less taxes, less regulations, encouraging new business, particularly small business, entrepreneurs who will hire people, and then will grow our tax base by creating more taxpayers and better taxpayers. We can't be taking more from a diminishing population. It's a losing proposition.
Thank you, Ron. Our next question will start with Stephanie, Krishna, work back toward Ed. So Stephanie, what will you do to get the state current on paying its bills?
Well, a lot of the things I voted for, I voted against expanding our bill base, and unfortunately some of those did pass. We have more individuals on Medicaid, most of our past bills are Medicaid and Medicare payments. The number one thing I think we need to do is look at instances of fraud and abuse and where we are losing money left and right with regards to our bills. I know I just talked to the comptroller last week, and we're at a 90-day bill pay cycle, which I think is extraordinary considering where we have been, but I do think that we need to buckle down. We need to find more savings, eliminate fraud, and make a more efficient system going forward.
Thank you, Stephanie. Krishna?
Well, first of all, I apologize. Last question I misunderstood. I'm completely against raising the tax or taxing the retirement Social Security income. Coming down to how will we pay our bills? I mean, it's definitely what we need to do is we need to look at the wastage that is in our system. We need to do the forensic analysis of our spending that we have. I mean, simple example, Medicaid. We know that hundreds of millions of dollars are paid to people who are not either they're not eligible or they're not in state or different ways. I mean, there are many things. We have to go line by line. The solution is to cut down our expenses, which are out of wastage that's in the system. We have to go and look at, prioritize everything and work with that and create a better economics environment so we can bring in more revenue and pay faster. Thank you.
Ron?
As of today, our comptroller says the unpaid bills are over $5 billion. That total is not much of a reduction since the midnight tax increase, which was sold by the Democrats in charge as a way to pay down bills, right-size government, run things efficiently, we'll fix how we do things, and then we'll let the tax lapse. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened that way because year over year, the D's in charge, I hate to be partisan, but that's the reality, the Democrats keep passing unbalanced budgets that exceed the year before payments. They spend more than they take in. That's how you stop spending too much. You stop spending too much, and you live within your means. It's attainable. It just requires new leadership.
Liz?
Thank you. Well, we always need to look into where the state can save and cut. But the reality is that if we don't keep the income tax where it's at right now, we probably won't be able to pay our debt. In actuality, the state has cut $4.9 billion out of core services over the past 6 years, $700 million alone to education. So I don't know how we can say we're going to pay our bills, fund education, and run our state without being realistic on, yes, of course, cut where we can and be fiscally conservative where we can, but we do need revenue. Thank you.
Grant?
Representative Sandak is absolutely correct. FY15 budget as proposed by the governor has $1.2 billion in new spending. We simply cannot just continue to expand government and spend more. Our unpaid bills are over $5 billion, and that 67% tax increase was supposed to solve that. We need a sound financial plan. And the $700 million cut from education, that's absolutely correct. However, doesn't that $100 million they somehow found for a new presidential library and $50 million for the Neighborhood Recovery Initiative, doesn't that money look really good right now to go towards things that we really needed to go to, like education? So we can't tax ourselves out of this. We need to come up with a sound financial plan and just stop the spending.
Ed?
Well, excuse me. Just like at home, you have a budget, you live within your means. And to overspend, it just creates problems. Stephanie mentioned examining line by line, see where fraud and abuse could be avoided, or including possible wastes in funding. Consolidation of services would be one way to reduce some of the expenses that are shared by the state, the county, the district, and the municipalities. Duplication of work is wasteful, and we can start saving some of that money and paying off some of the older debts.
Thank you, Ed. Our next question will start with Grant, go to Liz, Ron, Krishna, Stephanie, and Ed. So Grant, will you work to get rid of all benefits for elected state representatives and senators? And if not, why not?
Yes. So working here in Naperville in the City Council, I started to try to get rid of pensions for elected officials in Naperville. And quite honestly, being what I consider a fiscal conservative town, I thought it'd be easy. And it took a little bit of all tactics in order to persuade people to finally see the light. So it was diplomacy all the way down to, quite honestly, a little strong-arming to get it done. We are servants, public servants. We do this not as a financial reward, but to hopefully leave the world a better place. We are all obviously government enthusiasts. That's where we find our passion in life, and we want to leave the state better than we found it. It shouldn't be seen as a way to get rich or pad your friends' pockets or anything like that. We should absolutely get rid of benefits for the state legislature.
Liz?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I would absolutely support getting rid of health and pension benefits for all legislators. I have given up, as I said, my pension on the county board, and I also have given up health benefits on the county board as well. My second board meeting on the legislative committee, I encouraged our county board members to look into eliminating pensions and benefits for the DuPage County Board, and that initiative fell on deaf ears. And I would also encourage not only our state legislature to get rid of their pensions, but all county and local governments as well. Thank you.
Ron?
I'm doing it. I was the first member of the legislature not to take a pension or the health care. Since I did that, 25 of my colleagues followed suit, including Representative Kifowit. I think that's great. But I went beyond supporting the notion. I wrote a bill, and I have a bill that's like my term limits bill, like my fair maps bill, sitting in a committee that won't come out of the committee until we change the designation and the composition of the legislature so that there's balance. Let me leave one message with you all. One-party rule in Springfield is disastrous. There's no balance because there's no checks. And without checks and balance, you have absolute power, and we have an absolute disaster. So yes, I support it. Yes, I'm doing it. I've got a bill to try and get everyone on the same playing field because that will be best for all taxpayers.
Krishna.
Well, public service is a privilege. The kind of benefits and salaries that our legislators, we have for our legislators, and that too, this is a part-time job, they're quite high, especially when a state is not doing well. It's definitely pensions and health benefits. We should, they should be taken away. I'm going a step forward from that, as I've earlier announced too. I'm looking to even give away all the salary from that. We should have a way to eliminate or limit. We have to lead by example. That's what I believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you very much. As Ron already mentioned, ditto to that. And then also, I am the co-sponsor of reducing pay 10% for the 99th General Assembly. My name is on every bill that was introduced to reduce our pay by 10%, and I supported those bills to reduce our pay by 10%. I think that, as I do, I give all my time to this position. And I do think, though, I did not take the pensions, and I stand by that. In addition to that, I'm one of 2 state legislators that haven't taken any free dinners or freebies from lobbyists while in Springfield. So right now, I have 0 on my lobbyist expenditure, and I encourage my colleagues to start doing that as well.
Thank you. Ed.
Yeah, when I worked for Sears Roebuck, they had a policy about not receiving gifts and dinners and things like that. And I see this in a similar situation. Benefits of the job are working for the people, not the income, not the pension, not the health care. If bills were to come up to eliminate those, I'd be totally in support of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Liz, go to Grant, Ed, Stephanie, and come back around. And there must be a red herring in the audience from the business community. This is a homeowners forum, so I don't know how this question snuck its way in. But what sort of ratings and support do you have from business groups, such as the Chamber of Commerce, and why should the Naperville business community support your candidacy?
You know, actually, I haven't been very honestly engaged with the Chamber because what I feel is that the Chamber is a special interest group, and we have a lot of legislators up here that are very involved with special interest groups. I am a legislator or a public servant of the people, and that is who I serve. So, you know, I've not been invited to any chamber events, and if I was invited, I would definitely go. But I do support business. I work for a small family business, so very pro-business. Thank you.
Grant.
Thank you. As far as endorsements go, so far I've been honored to receive the NFIB endorsement, the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce endorsement. I am a proud Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce member. In my 2 elections for City Council, I did receive their endorsement. I also serve on the Naperville Development Partnership. So having a healthy and vibrant business community in town is essential to all involved. We need places to work, we need jobs, we need the tax base. It is just a critical component to the health of anywhere to have a sound, healthy, growing, expanding business community.
Ed?
Well, my community participation has not necessarily been with the chamber or the businesses in town. It's primarily been with my church. I've been on several committees or ministries, as we call them there, and I chaired several of those. And I've been well received in doing that. The community business people, if they want to decide to endorse me, that's fine. They can check out my webpage and talk to me if they'd like. I've been to several of their luncheons, and they're nice people, but they've not approached me for any kind of endorsement situations.
Thank you. Stephanie.
Thank you. And as was mentioned, the Illinois Chamber is a special interest, and they have a right to be because they represent the business community. I'm a member of 4 chambers in the area because I think being an elected official is important to work with my individual businesses in my community. I am proud to receive endorsements from individual business owners, and actually I did get support from Caterpillar, a big business in the community. So I think the biggest thing is to be out there for the community, be out there for the businesses, and to get individual businesses, just like individuals, donating, and just like everybody else supporting. We all have to do it together. It's not to focus on just one group, but to focus on the actual community and those who are supportive.
Thank you. Krishna?
Well, the business groups like Chambers and NFIB, they play a vital role in the interest of the small businesses, which are the backbone of our local and the state economy. So definitely their opinion matters, and I'm proud to have received the support from Illinois Chamber. I have support from NFIB. I have, in fact, I'm an executive premier member of Naperville Chamber, and I have received support or endorsements from them in past from other races, from my school board races. So I'm pretty much very well connected. I work with most of these organizations very well, and I have received support. In fact, one thing I'll just point out is, it's not to just go negative on here, but my opponent, the NFIB rating, which is the business rating from the NFIB, it's 29% for Stephanie, my opponent, on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. Ron?
I've been endorsed by the Illinois Chamber, that's the state party, the Chicagoland Chamber, NFIB, NACPAC, almost every chamber that scores legislators for how they vote to make Illinois a business-friendly state. I've been endorsed. However, I've also been endorsed by social workers, the Sierra Club, police, firemen, the gamut of those who take stock in how people vote. Those aren't interest groups. Those are participants. Those are taxpayers. Those are citizens, and they're entitled to score legislators based on how they vote and what they say and do. I'm proud of every endorsement I've received.
Thank you, Ron. This next question, we will start with Krishna. The audience member who wrote this question was worried this question was not going to get asked, and they put on the bottom, "Do not omit this question," with a couple of exclamation points after it. So, what are your views about the incredibly inequitable spread of income between people barely surviving on minimal salaries, often working 2 part-time jobs, and very highly paid executives? Is that the basic democracy of our wonderful country?
Well, I guess this issue is looked at in a little different way. The way I like to say is the reason people are working multiple jobs, they are being stretched, is because of our economy, because of the job situation we have in the state. The businesses are leaving. We don't have a good business environment. The jobs are not there. The good paying jobs are not there. Unless we build that, unless we encourage the job creators to come here and create more jobs, create a better paying job, I don't think so this is going to get resolved. It's not going to get resolved going in any kind of a socialist way or try to redistribute income. This has not worked. The only reason what America is today is because of the capitalist approach what it took. Every country in the world that has taken any kind of socialist approach has failed at some point of time. The only country that has been successful has been the United States of America, and I'm proud to follow that. Thank you.
Ron?
Certainly this is a significant problem. Income inequality is something that every good-hearted, good-souled person should be concerned with. But the real question is why are we having it, and why is the gap between those who have and those who have not widening? I would suggest it's because of lack of opportunity. And that's the problem. We need to grow jobs, offer opportunities for everyone across all spectrums of society. Look, no society has ever taxed their way into prosperity. Illinois is trying that, and all we're doing is going down the tube further. We're losing people in businesses every single day. So if we continue to overregulate and overtax, We're going to drive good people and businesses further from the state, squelching opportunity and widening the gap in income equality.
Liz.
Yes, thank you. Yes, income inequality is a huge problem, and it's growing. We do have record corporate earnings, CEOs making more money than ever, and the average worker making less. There used to be manufacturing, there used to be good paying jobs for when I was growing up. A lot of my friends' parents worked in factories. Those were good paying jobs. Those jobs have now all gone off seas. Now the jobs that those people are working are at the McDonald's and are at the Targets and are at the bank tellers. So we need to, it's the morally right thing to raise that minimum wage, because I am of the opinion that a rising boat lifts all tides, and if we take care of those, everything it'll work out much better. Thank you.
Grant.
Thank you. I am a compassionate conservative. I want to help those that need help, and that comes in many ways. I mean, SB 16 is the wrong way, in my opinion, to go about education funding, but it does raise the point that we need to look at how we fund education statewide. We do need to help those that need help. The middle class is no doubt shrinking, talking about those jobs that used to be around. Well, it's because of our policies that we put in place in Illinois, workman's comp, tort reform, things like that we can do to help businesses be able to afford to pay people more. Simply raising the minimum wage isn't the solution unless you have some way to free up those dollars in which corporations, small businesses primarily, can afford to pay a higher wage.
Ed?
Somewhere along the line, we've misplaced our middle class. And what we need to do is to allow people to earn more. And to do that, they need to be educated. Right now, there's a huge need for technical training. And jobs that have been going begging can be filled by people if they're trained in the right skills. Opportunities do exist, but they're hard to find if you're not qualified for them. Thank you.
Stephanie.
Well, a lot's been said, so I'm not going to repeat it, but one of the things, and I agree with a lot of it, that our middle class is shrinking, the state of Illinois' finances are unstable, and there is a lot of taxes out there. But one of the points that we need to do in supporting our small and mid-sized companies is to work with them to provide more job opportunities for our youth. My daughter is 17. She's been trying to find a job since she got her work permit when she was 15. There's no paper routes anymore for our youth. There's no jobs. I worked at Dairy Queen. I worked at Jewel Osco. There were a lot of job opportunities in my youth to set the foundation for being a better worker for the companies. And we need to start focusing on our youth, job skills training for our youth, and working to match up individuals with the companies that are hiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This question will start with Ed, work our way to my left, so Ed, Grant, Liz, Ron. Illinois has over 7,000 units of government. Do you support the consolidation or elimination of some of these districts? And what is your view regarding consolidating school districts?
I've mentioned it earlier that consolidation would be a good way to save some money and reduce expenses. And reducing the 7,000 units of government, the highest number of any state in the country, is the most sensible, practical thing for us to do. I've mentioned that we've got state, county, district, and municipal and township organizations all doing similar types of work, like the highway department. If that can be consolidated into a single unit, fleets of vehicles that are in storage right now can be disposed of and not purchased next time. Thank you.
Grant?
I am absolutely in favor of reducing the number of units of government in the state of Illinois. School districts are interesting, and because my only frame of reference is here in the Naperville-Warrenville area, I think consolidating 200, 203, and 204 might not be such a great idea. However, there are units of government that absolutely overlap. Right now, they're handled through intergovernmental cooperation, but there are definitely efficiencies to be gained by limiting the number of units of government in the state of Illinois.
Thank you. Liz?
Yes, thank you. I'm in favor of consolidation as long as it's done for consolidating purposes and not about consolidating power. There are 7,000 units of local government. Right here in DuPage County, we have the DuPage Election Commission. That government can be rolled back into the clerk's office by board resolution next month and save the county an average of $4 million a year. Yet there is no push by our chairman, who is pushing consolidation, to put the election commission back in the clerk's office like every other county in the state. So I would like to see certain consolidations done. Thank you.
Ron?
Again, we're doing it. DuPage County has been a leader in that. I was the proud chief co-sponsor of a bill that permitted DuPage to be used as an incubator, an example for the rest of the state, in an effort to reduce the myriad of board commissions, different levels of government, et cetera. And it's working right now in DuPage County, right here, right now. It needs to be expanded. We have way too many units of government, which sometimes amount to little fiefdoms and taxing bodies that no one really knows about. Go take a look at your property tax bill sometime. Anyone in this room, you're from DuPage County, about 26 different line items on that bill. And many of those units of government provide the very same service. So yes, efficiencies and effectiveness can be raised by reducing our numbers.
Krishna?
Yes, definitely. There is definitely a big need to consolidate and even eliminate some of those redundant government bodies we have. 7,000, a huge number. We don't need that. We need a smaller government. We need government that's functional. Some of them, I know a lot of them have been talked about at the larger level. Lieutenant Governor office, it seems to be, can be eliminated. We can combine treasurer and state treasurer and state comptroller office. Regarding the school districts, definitely the smaller school, we have, yes, 203 and 204 are large school districts, but there are multiple of school districts which have like very small student population. That they can be consolidated. It's not only going to save a lot of money, it's going to save, that money can be used for education in different, overall in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. And Stephanie?
Well, thank you. I think we are all kind of in agreement that consolidation is a great idea. I know that partnership, school districts, East and West Aurora, partnership to use their same buses and different schedules, and they saved a lot of money. There can be a lot of money in consolidation. And, one prime example is I was a council member on the city of Aurora. We have tens of miles upon miles of road repair. We bid out millions of dollars of road repair. And then we have Aurora Township that bids out like $200,000. They're paying more per mile because they don't have enough. The volume savings that can be done with consolidation alone, it would be ideal. And so I am in favor of consolidation, as well as I think almost everybody else here.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'd like to thank all of you for your answers, and I'd like to thank the audience for some wonderful questions. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for questions for this evening, but it's been a good panel, and I'd like to give everybody a round of applause. We've now come to the time of the evening when the candidates can give their closing statements. For these statements, which are limited to 1.5 minutes per candidate, we'll start with Stephanie and work our way back down the dais, the opposite way of the opening statements. Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate being here. I was a registered financial advisor with Morgan Stanley. I've been a substitute teacher. I have 2 children. Again, alderman, I have my master's in public administration, and I've been in Springfield 2 years already. And a lot of the things that I focused on that I wish to continue focusing on: veterans, making sure those that need us the most are there. Also, I'm on the heroin task force to talk about how we are losing our youth to drugs. My biggest passion is, again, lower taxes, getting more efficient government, line item by line item, getting our finances in place, because that is the #1 thing we have to do, along with fighting the fight against higher property taxes and keeping people in their homes so that they can live peacefully and comfortably in their houses, job training, working with the business community to provide funds for job training, being able for people to move up in their works, and definitely to be able to find jobs. And those are my key components to jobs, our financial status, and also looking out for our veterans and taking care of our children. So all around, I appreciate being here, and I have been honored to be representing the 84th District in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ed Augustin.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for some of the very good questions that were asked tonight. And if people want more information about me, there is literature out in the lobby. We were asked to bring some. I brought some. Please take it home with you. I do have a web page, edforillinois41.com, and it's FOR Illinois. While in the Navy, I learned that there are no Republicans or Democrats on board a ship, only shipmates, united in a common goal to function as a team, a unit to accomplish the goals set before them. In the General Assembly, I'd like to work in harmony with all members of the legislature to accomplish the goals the taxpayers set before us. I've served my country honorably for 4.5 years at sea and overseas. I'd like to serve my community as well in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Grant Worley.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation for hosting this forum and the fellow candidates up here. I see brighter days ahead for the state of Illinois, but I know it's going to take hard work. The problems this state currently face are massive. There are strong headwinds that Illinois faces. But I have proven leadership working here in the city of Naperville, the 5th largest town in the state, of sound fiscal management, taking a long-term view of our finances, working to make sure that our senior citizens' needs are addressed, that our children have what they need to succeed growing up and through life. It's going to take a collaborative effort to fix our state, and I think I bring that to the table as well. Proven leadership working to change state government. October 20th, early voting starts. I would certainly appreciate if you took the time and voted early for Worley. If you can't do that, on October 4th, I'm Grant Worley, number 1 on the ballot for House District 41. November 4th. Yeah. I would appreciate, October 4th, that's Cook County. Sorry, we run things right out here. I would certainly appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Liz Chaplin.
Yes, and thank you for having us. Thank the audience for attending, and appreciate the other candidates attending as well. So with that said, government must be frugal and fiscally responsible while providing needed services. I believe a particular strength of the 81st District is that every neighborhood in our district is blessed with high-quality public schools. I will fight to protect our schools and keep them under local control. Yes, Senate Bill 16 is a threat to our schools, but it's not the only threat we face. My opponent advocates for a property tax freeze that would have cost Naperville District as much money as they would potentially lose under Senate Bill 16. School boards need to answer to their voters, not Springfield. My opponent is also on record wanting to replace our system of public education with universal charters and vouchers. I will resist those efforts vigorously. A second common denominator of that extends across the 81st District is quality infrastructure, superb public safety, good parks, and access to transportation. I will stand against any Springfield initiative that undermines the ability of our local governments to fulfill their core responsibilities or take away over local control over local affairs. Again, my name is Elizabeth Liz Chaplin, and I'm asking for your vote on November 4th.
Thank you, Liz. Ron Sandak.
Thank you to everyone here. Thanks for this forum. It's been wonderful and very collegial. Look, there's been a clear contrast and distinction between many of the folks up here, and that's a good thing. We've had some discussion about the progressive income tax. It's a bad idea. We've had some discussion about raising taxes. Really bad idea. That's been tried and it's failed. The folks in Springfield, and there's only a few folks in Springfield that control things, have spent and spent and spent, and they've taxed and taxed and taxed. And they want us to think a different outcome is going to occur. Well, it isn't. We need different mindset there. Putting someone up there that's for the progressive income tax or for an income tax increase just takes more money out of your pocket, and you're not going to get any return on that value. In the western suburbs, we're perceived as having streets paved of gold and able to continually pay more. It's provably untrue. We pay more than our fair share and get very little back. One-party rule, unfortunately, has been a disaster, and we need checks and balances. We need good stewardship. We need a new way. Let me address one concept. I am absolutely, unabashedly for a property tax freeze when values decrease. We've seen property taxes continually increase when our values go down. Abundantly unfair. It's hurt seniors particularly, new homeowners, and it is terrible for our overall economy. So yes, I plead guilty. When values decrease, I think property taxes should freeze. It's a better plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And Krishna Bansal.
Well, thank you, Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation, for hosting such a wonderful forum. Thank you, all the candidates here, and everyone attending this forum. It has been a very interesting forum discussion. One thing, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I have traveled extensively across in many countries around the world. One thing in common I found everywhere is, and I make this a point when I go to different countries and ask is like, hey, what is one place you would like to go and live if you get a chance? One common thing is, I would like to go and live in America. That's what America is. That's what American dream is. I know what it is. I have experienced it. I have lived it. The problem I see here right now is we are losing the fundamentals, what has made this country, this state, the best state. It is the best state. We have everything available, but somehow, unfortunately, the policies we have enacted, they are failing us. We need to get back. We need to get the right kind of leadership. We need to go back to the smaller government. We need to have the lower taxes. We need to have a better climate for everyone to flourish. We need to get the state back, and I promise you, I'm all for doing all this. I will encourage all of you to come and vote. This is something very much necessary. We know this is a presidential year election. We don't see a big number of people come out, but if you want the state to be fixed, the only way this can be done is we want every one of you to come out and vote. Please encourage your neighbors. Please encourage your friends to come out and vote. My information is available on my website, krishnaforillinois.org. I'm available here for any other questions. Thank you so much. Good night.
And thank you, Krishna. And thank you, everyone. We've come to the conclusion of tonight's forum. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation, I'd like to thank each of the candidates for their time and their willingness to answer our questions. I'd also like to thank the audience for their attention and the excellent questions they passed on to our screeners, and I apologize we could not get to more of them. I would also like to personally thank the members of the Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation that are here tonight for their assistance in putting on tonight's forum. I couldn't have done it without my logistics, my timers, and my screeners, not to mention the people that have been picking up the questions all night. So thank you. It's great to have a good team working with you. Finally, my sincere thanks and our sincere thanks go to the City of Naperville, and particularly to Community Relations Manager Linda LaCloche, and to NCTV Channel 17 for their invaluable assistance in making tonight's event possible. Tonight's forum will be rebroadcast on Naperville City Access Channel WCNC several times in the weeks prior to the election. The WCNC schedule can be found on the City of Naperville website. For those who want to know what WCNC is, if you're in Naperville, it is Channel 6 on WOW, it is Channel 10 on Comcast, and it's in that block of community access channels under Channel 99 on AT&T UVerse. We are also planning to have the forum available for viewing online. Unfortunately, we're still managing those logistics, so I cannot tell you how that will be posted. I expect to know more about that later tomorrow, and my plan is to have the forum up online by the end of the week. When details are available, please check our website, www.napervillehomeowners.com, .org, .net. Take your pick. We use all three of them. And one last note, my Confederation commercial. The Naperville Area Homeowners Confederation exists to serve both the homeowner and community associations of Naperville and all Naperville residents. I'd like to invite everyone, all area residents, to attend one of our future meetings and become more involved in our organization. I'd also like to invite the victors on this panel to join us at our January meeting when we have our annual legislative preview for the session. So whichever three of you make it, I hope to see you in January downstairs in meeting rooms A, B, and C. It's been a pleasure to serve as your moderator this evening, and I wish all candidates good luck and a fair election, and good night, and thank you.